The historical value of this particular Superbird is several-fold. This car is responsible for emissions testing. This is the first, actually it's the only car that the EPA sanctioned Ray Nichels, the top engine and NASCAR builder, to modify for the EPA. The car was used to test the emissions for automobiles, and then they said, okay, let's see if this car would be able to chase a jet airplane down the tarmac, and we'll test the emissions off jet engines. One of the main concerns for John Moran was, of course, nobody had ever chased a jet aircraft, so he was a little bit concerned, would the car just be blown right off the course? The Superbird would get up to about 100 miles an hour by the time the jet started liftoff. The car could do 100 miles an hour 2 hours at a time if he wanted to. And essentially, the Superbirds set up for competition could reach 220 plus miles an hour, to give you a good idea of how fast and how aerodynamic they were designed. Throughout the first run, it handled extremely well. It has air shocks, which would raise the rear and dip the nose so that there wouldn't be an immense wash coming up off of the jet engines, and it worked perfectly. There is a setup here to be able to communicate with the tower and the pilot. The exhaust, it comes out through the center where normally they would be on the sides, and the purpose for that is to jet the exhaust out far enough to not be picked up by the sniffer up there on the wing and contaminate the results. There's an inverter to run a pump inside the trunk, which literally sucks the emissions down and collect on little plates. They're all stacked up inside the trunk. The particulates would attach themselves to the plates, and then after the run would be done, they would take them to the lab and analyze parts per million. As far as the EPA is concerned, this was really their first project. No lead gasoline is attributed to this car. The millions and millions of more vehicles on the road, if you were to have that same amount of lead being pumped into the atmosphere, we would be all choking and dying quite a bit earlier than you can imagine. Mechanically speaking, the engine remained the same. However, you did put a special cam, roll bar, 4-point harness. It has the Hemi rear end. There's 4 batteries. There's 2 alternators to charge those 4 batteries. In the back area here, they removed the seat. There's 3 batteries installed back there. He took out the front bench seat and replaced it with bucket seats. I would think that this car, depending on the track, it might hit 180. Obviously today it's set up for unleaded fuel. My MPG, I'm thinking maybe 15 miles per gallon. This car is literally restored better than factory. This shop restored this vehicle to 100 point. Everything is totally documented. There is so much documentation on this vehicle. I would say there are no other vehicles that have ever been restored that have this much documentation. The car is located right here in E-Muscle in Connecticut. This car absolutely cannot be modified, changed for any particular reason. It has way, way further implications than just the value of the Superbird per se. I remember seeing an interview with John Moran, who was essentially the person in charge of this whole project. And he mentioned that he didn't have any problem, if driving the car again, if that chance was to be offered. The significance of this vehicle, say for instance to a museum, it is a one of a kind. It's the only one that ever was created, the only one that ever existed. The testing and so forth brought about the environmental changes. There is not near as much lead in the air, if any. Asbestos was eliminated, lead was eliminated, and today, of course, cars are much better, much better.